What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are doing a Viscous coupler rebuild. So I off camera got the CRX up and going again. So if you guys have seen the last video where my fuel pump had died on me, I I thought it was the fuel pump. The loud crackling popping noise that I heard from my drive to the EF versus DA meet was not actually the fuel pump. It was the whole wiring harness for the fuel pump, the sending unit, the stock harness that was coming from the back seat somehow got entangled with my rear axle, and it, you know, made that loud cracking popping noise, which was actually pulling everything from the cabin through the hole where the old gas tank used to sit and wrapped itself around the axle. So we did all the work yesterday to remove the pump and all that, to find out the wiring wasn't even there because it was wrapped on the axle. So then you know, we kind of diagnosed a little bit, figured out where all the wiring was at, re-ran the signal to the relay for the fuel pump, direct powered it, and it works. So I have a spare Viscous coupler, and it's just been sitting on the shelf for some times now. And since I've turboed the CRX all-wheel drive for the first time back in 2018, I used the Viscous coupler that I had, and through all of the setups, the low horsepower to the current horsepower, the car had always felt front-wheel drive. I'll slap in a little clip right now of the launches right here in front of the house to show you that the car spins way more in the front before it transfers to the rear. Now the Viscous coupler that's in the Wagon is rebuilt from Benjamin White, and it was a process, you know, sending it out, getting it rebuilt, took some time to come back. And once it did, we slapped it in the car when we went to all-wheel drive, and man, the massive difference and feel of the rebuilt Viscous coupler versus what the CRX was doing was 100% noticeable. If you guys saw the all-wheel drive burnout for the 100K, you guys saw that the Wagon was spinning the rear a lot more, making it look like it was rear-wheel drive, because that's what the rebuilt Viscous coupler does. With the new fluids and all that, the torque transfers a lot more now to the rear opposed to the 30-year-old fluid that's in it. So today we're going to be rebuilding the Viscous coupler with new seals, bearings, and fluid, which we all have inside there. Now I do have the Wagon book right here. It shows you how to remove like the Viscous coupler from the drive shaft and all of the, you know, carrier bearings and all of that, but it does not show you how to rebuild the Viscous coupler itself. So you can see right here, this is the end of, you know, the Viscous coupler section, and then it goes straight into steering. So there's nothing in this book that shows you how to rebuild, but if you guys go on to YouTube, you can find a video from Justin Sane. He did one video on a rebuilt Viscous coupler 8 years ago, and then there's John from Dash and Cars. He did one recently on his, and his was successful as well. Now if you guys follow Benjamin White, he also has a YouTube channel kind of explaining a little bit about the Viscous coupler and the rebuild process, but not the actual like full rebuild process. He is also on Facebook, Benjamin White. He does Viscous coupler rebuilds for anybody who needs it or who don't have the tools to do it. He charges a fair amount to rebuild one and send it back to you, which, like I said, I have one in my Wagon. And then there's Brandon Smith from We Have Shit Up on Instagram. He shows a little bit on his story on how to rebuild Viscous couplers. So those four guys, I'm sure there's other people out there that has done a rebuilt Viscous coupler, and today I'm going to show you guys from what I've picked up from everybody else's DIY on how to rebuild my Viscous coupler. So I'll talk about this box a little bit later. So this package came from Brandon Hickson out of Texas, and he has a website which I'll include in the description below. He sells kits for rebuilt Viscous couplers, and I'm sure he sells some other items on his website, but this was my targeted, you know, product that was offered from him. So here we have the silicone fluid that you're gonna need to you know, replenish the Viscous coupler. On his website, he sells fluid separately, and he also sells a complete rebuild kit. So one of his kits comes with one I think this is 12 ounce maybe, one container of fluid. I bought a second one right here, and then the kit comes with all of the seals to replace the Viscous coupler old units. It comes with the needle bearing, comes with the I think end bearing, which goes on the bottom of the Viscous, and then we have a brand new nut for the top. right here we have the full instruction sheets on how to do it, right? Oh, it's got pictures on it too. That's awesome. And a balloon. Now if you watch Dashing Cars, he did do his rebuilt Viscous coupler, buying pieces separately. And if you look in this kit right here, it comes with 3 of I don't know the terminology, but 3 of these seals, and the one that Dashing Car provided in his description comes in a pack of 25. So this right here, you can rebuild a ton of Viscous coupler. And then you can see this one big O-ring right here. This one, I think it has 5 in here. And for all of that, I paid, I believe it was like 20 bucks or something like that. So if your bearing is good, this kit right here and just buying the fluid is going to cost a lot cheaper than buying the whole kit, which includes all the bearing itself, and you can rebuild a ton of Viscous coupler. I bought this as spares because the one on my CRX probably going to need a rebuild, and the one that I have a spare right here is the one I'm going to change all the bearings on, and then hopefully the bearings in the other one is good, where I can just change the seals and the fluid, and then I'll have a rebuilt Viscous coupler on the side. The website that you can get the rebuild kit from is right here, turbo2nrs.com, and like I said, I'll link in the description below. So if you buy one of this kit, I mean obviously you can go through the pamphlet here and read the instructions on how to do this. I'm just going to go ahead and just plow through the Viscous coupler and get this top section all removed from the Viscous coupler itself, so we can get to this dust shield and take out that snap ring. The manual says this is 95 foot-pounds. Oh, that slid off pretty simple. Now the carrier bearing has seen some better days. It's pretty bent. If you guys got a bent one like this, you can either hit up Steve Spooner and get yourself an OEM replacement with the rubber integrated, or Brandon Smith for the billet version of this. I'm probably gonna reuse the one that's out of my CRX, so I'm gonna not install this when everything's all said and done. Gave it a good couple whacks with my midget hammer, 16 ounce. That came off. Now, mind you guys, there is another snap ring on the back side right here for the shaft. So if you're not changing out that bearing, you don't have to worry about the outer snap ring, but on the inside, the one right here in the middle, you got to take that out to take off the shaft to separate it from the housing. So now that you got the snout ring off on the front side and the back side, or the back side, front side, whichever side, you can use a punch the center right here and knock this to release all of this from the housing, or you can use a press. So I'm gonna go ahead and just try to get this out some way, somehow. So this top end right here was a little rusted. I took it to my press and pressed out from the back side. This thing, talk about no fluid. It is freaking, holy crap. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this is silicone. This is not like regular diff fluid or oil or anything like that. This is specifically for Viscous coupler disc, and it's really thick, really sticky. I mean, I don't know what the condition of this Viscous coupler was, but this doesn't look as bad as all the other ones I've seen. But if I'm gonna change it, might as well rebuild it. Now, if you buy the kit from T2NR, they offer different blends of fluids. I run 60 because it's supposed to be for like street moderate power cars, and then they go up to 100K and then custom blends for like transfer ratios. If you want to do like an OEM wagon rebuild, like say for your stock wagon, they have 30K, which is like OEM style. and you get the one that suits your setup and what you're doing with your car. So $60K for me. Right now I am going to clean each and every one of these discs after understanding which one goes where. Now if you want to get like a more thorough, in-depth, you can check out Dash and Cars. I've watched this video plenty of times to understand where everything goes. Now once the bearing has been popped out, I just use the socket to pop it out. There's a seal right here on the inside in the groove right there. That's one of the seals you have to change out with this one right here, a fresh one. You can do it from the bearing side or from the inside, but you know, if you haven't cleaned this yet, it's best to just do it on this side because you don't get all that silicone all over your hands. I am wearing gloves, so I'm not worried, but since I'm pressing it out, it seems to be a little more accessible from this end. So you just gotta take a pick, which I don't have. You also have to take note which side goes which direction, right? I just took it out like this. The spring is on the viscous side. Wait, what? This one has a spring on it. What's going on? Take note that the first disc, this guy right here, this sits at the very bottom of the cup. This disc free floats right by itself, so this is going to go in like that, and the rest of this disc is held on by a retaining clip. You can kind of see it right there. So once you remove that retaining clip, all of this disc is going to release itself from the shaft. So again, I'm going to take note of how all of these go, and then I'm going to take them all out, clean them in there, and then we'll start the reassembly. This disc looks identical on both sides, so I don't think it matters which way it goes back on, but I am going to keep it in the same formation that I pulled it out in. So it's probably, I don't know, 50 discs. Man, this thing is sticky. So it seems it's the first two discs, and then this little snap ring spacer thing right here. Right? I'm going to clean that off a little bit too. Now I'm going to check how many discs before we see another one of this, for my reference at least. That goes there. So it seems that there's supposed to be a ring on every disc that bites on the casing. So the ones with the slashes in the disc, there should be a ring that goes in between it, because the disc with the circle on it, the ring doesn't go through it. So it has to be one of these little rings in between each disc that bites on the casing. So dotted ones, slotted ones, ring, and then dotted. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Alright guys, so 2 days ago we were doing the Viscous coupler rebuild, and I spent about an hour and a half cleaning the discs, and that was taking a very long time where we lost a lot of daylight, right? So when I finished cleaning the disc, Joaquin and Steven was like, yo, you trying to mop out to some PRs? I was like, all right. So I cleaned everything up and we took off. So when we came back, you know, it was obviously too late to work on the rebuild. And then yesterday We went to a meet out in Brentwood hosted by Bay Area Pits, and it was definitely a great drive for this car. I didn't really record because we lost the pack, and then when we got to the meet, I was kind of enjoying, you know, the moment, hanging out, chopping up with everybody instead of recording. So I didn't really record anything. Today we're gonna be finishing up the Viscous coupler rebuild, with the exception of everybody still chilling over there. Hopefully I don't get too distracted, but back here where we left off, I've already kind of sort of cleaned this guy, the shaft and the top lid. So in order to get to the two seals that are in here, one right there and one on the back side, and then there's a bearing, a needle bearing is in the middle as well too, and here are all of the disc cleaned and ready to rock and roll, nice and smooth, not all sticky icky with the old silicone that was on here. And I kept this right here with a whole bunch of stuff around it so I don't lose any one of those circular clips or any of these discs. So hopefully they're all still there because I haven't seen it in 2 days. So now that we have the top half off the shaft, there are a few seals that you can change on here to kind of make this a full rebuild. So the first seal is this guy right here, this giant O-ring. I don't know the correct terminology for it. This one feels really good. It's still nice and rounded, and it doesn't seem like it's brittle at all. There wasn't any signs of leaks either from the Viscous coupler itself, but because I do have the full rebuild kit, I am going to change this out. It's really in good condition. So there's a seal right here in the front. This one right here goes on the outside of the shaft. You can pop this off like a regular transmission seal. Needle bearings are on the inside. Gotta figure out how I'm gonna take that out because I don't have all the proper tool. But there is another seal on the bottom side right in there, kind of how it was on the front side of the Viscous coupler. You can go ahead and just take a pick and pick it out. This one's nice and soft, so that's pretty simple. Take note, the ones with the little spring that normally sits right here up in the front seal, like the transmission seal, this one goes on the outside of the hat. The other seal, this one right here, and the one we took off from the rear, it's full solid all around, and they're identical all around. So I don't think it matters which way it goes on, but you just got to make sure between the two you put the right one in the right area. So from the looks of this bearing, it's held on by a C-clip, Circlip, and you can use snap ring pliers to take that off right there, and then hopefully the bearing should come out with ease. Otherwise we're going to be knocking it out. That's your boy.
How would that shit happen from 1 day to the next? Off the back, I know, but this is I don't know, Friday.
Car guys don't want you to embarrass people. Okay guys, so right now I'm gonna put this shaft inside the housing, and first thing I did right here was I put the Circlip on because you're not going to be able to reach that once this is in there. So make sure the Circlip is in, and then you want to go ahead and gently install this into the housing. You may need a little force because you need to get the shaft to come all the way out where it's out enough to install the Circlip. So give it a little tap tap. Oh, never mind. So yeah, if you can see, it's out enough where the groove for the snap ring is visible. And go ahead and install your Circlip so that way this doesn't move when you're doing the silicone process. Somehow I did that with my fingernails. So once the shaft is secured into the housing, right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill the housing with fluid 1/2 inch from the bottom going up. So I talked about the fluid earlier in the video about the weight of the silicone that they offer. OEM rebuild is 30K. This is 60 for like moderate street cars with, you know, high horsepower, and then there's like 100K and then custom blends that they offer. So I'm running 60 because he recommended for my power level and what I do with my car. Pretty much like I said, you're going to fill from the bottom of the housing upward about 1/2 inch. I'm gonna guess this because I don't have a measuring tape in there. Oh boy, this thing is dummy thick. Oh my goodness. Pause. Dude, this thing is. So the first disc is a slotted disc because I kept this in the order that I took it out from. And this is like a free floating one. There's no like, you know, snap ring, O-ring that goes in between here. So this one bites into the housing first, right? And what we're gonna do here with each and every one of these discs, we're gonna apply a little bit of pressure so that way all the silicone can bleed through the holes and make sure it's airtight before the next disc. And dashing cars used an exhaust pipe, make sure it's nice and clean. And he sat it over the shaft on the disc. I'm gonna give it a few minutes in between, let all the silicone bleed through, and then we're gonna feed the next one in. And we're gonna keep doing that until we run out of disc. And every time the silicone bleeds through and levels itself flat, you want to keep filling the fluid in to keep the disc drenched with the fluid. Also take note that these little rings go in between each disc, or every 2 discs. You'll see as I do this, but this is going to be a long process, so I'm going to put you guys on the time lapse. Alright guys, so I don't know how many days we are into this rebuild of the Viscous coupler, but hopefully today is the final day. So last night we have all the clutch packs and the rings installed. I had a pipe on this and I let it sit overnight to kind of bleed out all of the bubbles. If you look, almost no bubbles. That little black right there in the silicone, that was a little bit of the residuals from the exhaust pipe. Must have not cleaned it all the way, but I hope that doesn't affect the working of the silicone. So right now I filled it up to, I don't know if you can see it, but I didn't fill it all the way to the top, because when we put the lid on, it's going to compress all of this downward. And what you have to do is on the bottom side of the Viscous coupler, there are these torque screws that you have to remove when you're pressing the lid on, because what it's going to do is it's going to push the silicone downward, and then it's supposed to drain out of that as we are pressing the lid down, so that way it is airtight. Let it bleed out, snap ring on, and then that'll be that. Put the screws back on, clean it up, and then you'll have a rebuilt Viscous coupler. So right now I'm just a little confused. I'm looking at the top disc, and it doesn't seem like it's lining up with the teeth on the housing. If you look over there, if you look over here, I use this little welding wire to try to shift it around to see if it's supposed to sit or if it does sit or not. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be like that, but I'm just gonna send it anyways. If we have issues, we'll take it back out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all my stuff laid out right here, take those screws out, and we'll close this up. And also, I forgot to mention, before that last disc, you put that little snap ring back into the shaft. You can see it right there. And then that top disc sits on top, free floating, just like the bottom one. Here it is, guys, my Wagon Viscous coupler rebuilt. So this guy right here is pretty much ready to rock and roll. I am not installing the carrier bearing because it is bent to smithereens, and I'm not running the dust shield on it because I bent the hell out of that as well too. But we have the bearing in the back changed out. We have the seals on the bottom, seals on the top, seals in the middle, and the needle bearing in here changed out. We have the big O-ring thing here changed out, and we have new 60K fluids in here as well too. If you guys saw when we were pressing this, we drained out a bunch of fluid right here on the floor. Those are all the excess to you know, squeeze out of here once we squeeze the top in to make it airtight, and snap ring on top is installed. So this guy right here is ready to be installed. I'm not ready to work on the car just yet, but I am going to change it out real soon. And the carrier bearings that are on here, I am going to use on here when I pull it out. So this guy is just pretty much going to sit until we find a day to swap it out. Because today, maybe I'll start on today or tomorrow. We have that EG right there that we're going to be boosting. I'm sorry if my DIY Viscous coupler rebuild was a little confusing. If you guys buy your own kit, there is a full instruction picture pamphlet that comes with the kit. This guy right here explains everything you need to do as far as rebuilding your Viscous coupler if you're using a Wagon one. I got enough seals and fluids to rebuild the one that's going to come out of this car, so I can have that one as a spare. But for right now, I am going to clean everything up, switch the cars around so we can get started on that. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you guys want to stick around for the turbo install on that EG, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.